Like a lot of RPGs, magic is probably the most difficult aspect of Pathfinder, mainly because you're going to be interacting with more of the rules more frequently than other classes. The good news though is if you're coming from something like, let's say, D&D 5th edition, you're going to have a working knowledge already of how Pathfinder's magic system works, mainly because you'll be familiar with various terms and certain concepts such as spell slots and magical components. So you already have a basis of how the game works, but there are going to be some differences. In order to talk about how magic works, we're actually going to break things down into various segments. First, we're going to talk about spell lists, then we're going to talk about caster types, and finally, we're going to talk about spell levels. It should be noted, any rules about spellcasting that are adjusted or altered in some capacity due to the various classes will be discussed in that class's specific overview video, most likely after a revised comes out, so that way the information will be more up to date.
Magic.
Pathfinder breaks its spells down into specific lists. Rather than having the spells be tied to a specific caster, the caster is more so tied to the list, and you will find 5 different spell lists: Primal, Occult, Arcane, Divine, and Elemental. As mentioned, a caster is often tied to a specific list. So a druid is tied to the primal list. Primal has to do with nature. Wizards are more often than not attached to arcane, since, well, they're arcane. Sorcerers are also arcane, but their bloodlines can also alter various elements, and can potentially allow them to pull from other spell lists. But again, we'll dive deeper into that when we cover the sorcerer. Also, it should be noted that some spells will only appear on one specific list, while others can appear on multiple. Acid Splash, for instance, is on both Arcane and Primal.
You're a wizard.
There are basically 2 types of casters within Pathfinder: spontaneous and prepared casting. Spontaneous means that you learn new spells at every single level. You could also swap out old spells for new ones. An example of spontaneous casters would actually be Sorcerer. So a first level sorcerer knows 4 cantrips and 2 first level spells of their choice from the arcane spell list. They are then able to cast those first level spells per their spell slots. Any one of them, doesn't matter. As long as they have it learned, they can cast them. And this is pretty much true for all spontaneous casters. Naturally, as you level, you will learn more. So again, if you're coming from D&D 5e, good news, you understand how spontaneous casters work. Prep casting means that you have to prepare a new set of spells at dawn. This can be due to the fact that you either have access to the whole spell list, such as Druid, or a select portion of the spell list, such as Wizard, through your spellbook. An example of a prep caster is Druid. At dawn, you are able to prepare 5 cantrips of your choice and 2 first level spells of your choice. So the good news is, if you wanted to swap out any cantrips, you can absolutely do so at the following dawn. You don't really have to wait for a level up. So good news there. Though here's where things begin to deviate from 5e. Let's say for a druid, you're leaning more into the healer role. So you prepare heal. It's at first level since you're a druid and you only prepare it once. Well, I hope you got a good use out of that one prepared heal, because that's the only heal you'll be able to cast that day until the following dawn. So yes, this is the biggest difference if you're coming from D&D 5e. Prepared casters, if they want to cast a spell multiple times per day, they had to prepare it multiple times per day, within the rules as written.
Magic.
Lastly, we're going to be covering Heightened. Now, if you spent any time scanning through the Spellcasters, you probably saw this term being thrown around. Well, in short, this is how Pathfinder effectively does upcasting. Again, hopping back for 5e as a comparison, just so we have a basis of what we're working with. 5th edition, it worked that basically if you had a 2nd level slot, you could upcast any spell that you wanted. This could produce additional effects, or sometimes just allow you to be able to burn a higher spell slot in terms of, well, just trying to balance things out. Pathfinder 2nd edition, however, has a different way of doing it. You see, you need to prepare that spell at a higher level. But you know, I think we're getting an example for this, so let's hop back to our druid. They've leveled up to 3rd and now have access to 2nd level spells. Awesome! Well, at dawn they prepped heal at 1st level, not 2nd. Unfortunately, they can't upcast it to 2nd level, since they only prepared it at 1st. Well, next morning they decide to prepare it at 2nd level, but not 1st.
Objection!
In order to cast a spell at a higher level, you must first have it prepared at the lowest level you get it. So for heal, we'll have it prepped at 1st and 2nd level, which will allow us to cast it at those respective levels. This continues all the way up until 9th. This rule is true for both spontaneous casters and prepared casters. If you want to cast a spell at a higher level, you need to prepare it both at the earliest level and the highest level that you want to do it. So Magic Missile at 1st level, and then Magic Missile at 2nd level, and potentially even 3rd if you wanted to.
Magic.
As mentioned, if you're coming from games like D&D 5e, you will have a working knowledge of how Pathfinder's mechanics operate. They are just going to be a little bit more crunchy and expansive than what you're used to, but you will have a working understanding of various terminologies. So just slow down, take a deep breath, read it, and then use it as a point of reference, and go from there. Now, there are a lot more details to things, specifically how classes interact with this magic set, but for a basic overview of how Pathfinder operates, this will work just fine. We will slowly dive into more and more details as we progress, and especially start diving into the classes, which I know I wanted to do Rogue next, but considering we are just a few months away from Pathfinder Revised coming out, I may hold off on that because there might be some details that will be changed by the time we get there. So that video is probably going to be put on hold, but it'll probably be one of the first classes that we cover when the book comes out. So until next time, everybody, keep being awesome, keep rolling those dice. Cheers.